Welcome everyone. My name is Emily McHugh, and I'm happy you're here with me today as we enter upon our discussion of the topic, nurturing the next generation of entrepreneurs, what you need to know. And this is an interesting time we're in. We know all the different things going on in our world with all the activity with COVID and all the strife and upheaval. So this is a very timely topic as SBDC consultants and other business people who engage in different types of conversations and interactions. The topics we'll cover today should be timely as we embark on that. So now let us get started and give you a little overview of the presentation. So it's really 5 sections here today. The evolving face of entrepreneurship from millennial to boomer. What does that mean? What does that look like? We're going to look at some trends and opportunity. Number 2, growth and challenges. And number 3, barriers to success. What are some of the external and internal factors? And number 4, how can you help? How you can help, what empowerment tools you can share with your clients, not only for them, but for yourself. And then we'll have a Q&A time where you can ask questions that you may have. So once upon a time, when asked to name notable modern day entrepreneurs, or asked to say, if someone asked you, tell me if I ask you for the name of an entrepreneur, what names come to mind? Who do you tend to think of? Well, here are some that many people consider the likely suspects: Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, people like that. And so what do you notice about this slide? Well, for one thing, they're all men. They all happen to be male here. Not that you couldn't think of a female entrepreneur, but I've been to so many presentations and heard so many talks when people are referring to entrepreneurs and all they show are a selection of the people that you see on this slide, as if they were the only entrepreneurs in the world. This is what tends to come up as a popular image. However, the landscape is changing, and I would dare say it's not only is it changing, but it has changed, but it's going to be changing, continue to change even more. And the thing to understand is that there are all these factors involved with the change. So the evolving face of entrepreneurship, it's female, it's multi-ethnic, it's millennial, it's boomer, it's multicultural. It's going to be a little of everything. That's really the bottom line. And I don't believe that over time it will be dominated by any one group of people or any one particular face. So it's an evolution that we need to be prepared for. That's happening right now. So the next generation, this is what it looks like. Looks like everybody. That's what it is. And I will put in a little shameless plug for myself. That picture in the upper right, that's myself and my sister when we used to going through fabric. That was actually on a trip to China when we were selecting fabric. Our company, Story, selecting bag fabric. And here you have the images that you should expect to see more of. And more of these are called ladies, women. And it's not an accident that you're going to see more women. And for the following reasons that we're going to discuss in a few moments. So now let's talk a little bit about the client's expectations of the SBDC. When people come to you, what do they expect? And not only if they come to you as an SBDC consultant, but if in any capacity where someone goes to someone else for expertise or for insight. So they're, number one, they're coming for expertise. They expect you to have a certain tech savvy awareness. You may not be proficient in every single software or what have you, but to have an awareness that certain things exist. Be comfortable with diversity, not feel out of your element. Be flexible as you deal with different people, and have an air of neutrality where you don't come off as having some type of bias. So these areas are really important to consider, and we'll go into them some more as well. So today and tomorrow's entrepreneurs, what do they expect as we review the evolving face of entrepreneurship? Well, as I mentioned before, they expect a certain degree of expertise and they're looking for structured guidance. Now, what does that mean, structured guidance? So if I come to you and I have a question or I have a concern, will I be left hanging somewhere? Am I going to just be handed off to someone else without feeling as if I was kind of guided through the process? Do I feel as if the buck is being passed elsewhere or something like that? So people want to feel like you can handle them. And even if what they need from you, you're not able to provide, they want to know that you've done your best effort to give them something and guided them to the right next person. So some of the pitfalls to avoid and the steps to take in this regard is pretty much what I just said, that you're making that effort to not make it seem as if you're trying to get rid of someone. And that is actually a pitfall, in that people feel rushed, or they feel as if there's not enough time for them or something to that effect. So it's all about how they're going to perceive you and how you react to them. And the idea of being tech savvy, the know-how, being familiar with current platforms. So I put there as an example TikTok, which is a social media platform which is relatively newish and tends to be really popular among, as always, as most social media platforms are, with the younger generation. It starts off with this kind of youth thing, and then it migrates older, kind of like Facebook started with young people, and now it's pretty much an older type of platform. The younger generation tends to go more on the Instagram, and they're very up on the TikTok, which is a video series of short videos. So if someone comes into your office and they mention that, and you're like, what is that? Now, not that you have to know everything, as I said, but it's helpful to kind of know, especially if it's a millennial who's coming into you to talk about something like this, and then you don't really have a sense of what they're saying, there's going to be an immediate disconnect. So a little bit of awareness there. The idea of diversity comforts, embracing the world, embracing new ideas, and seeing it as normal. Now, a lot has to do with the people's backgrounds, where you're coming from, what you're used to. And so if you're not used to certain types of interactions, it might be unusual at first, but the idea is that human beings, one thing I can tell you to make you feel comfortable, we're all the same at the end of the day. Even if we have different cultures or ethnicities, we are still humans, the same human feelings, emotions, and thoughts. So that's one piece of common ground that's not changing from human to human. And if we stay connected to that, we won't have a problem dealing with really anyone. And having flexibility, creative openness, and kind of going beyond the status quo. What does that mean? Well, it means just that. Instead of saying like, this is how we've always done it, or this is how we're used to doing it, or this is the way we do it. Oh, maybe it's time to think of doing it maybe slightly differently, and having a holistic approach to the entrepreneur. They come into you not just with their business, but they come into you with their life, and they come into you with what's going on in their lives. And being aware of all those things that come to bear on the conversation, I think allows us to be more broad-minded maybe, and a little bit more creative in interacting with different people. And the idea of neutrality, that concept of having a judgment-free zone. No one's coming in there to be judged for what they're wearing, what they're not wearing, what they're this or what they're that. They just want to discuss their business or whatever it is they want to talk about. And so many times, so many other things may interfere with that dialogue. So we want to be mindful of not having our views be imposed on others. And one of those things, so now we're in a political season leading up to elections and so forth. So we know that's always a hot topic. And it's interesting how, even though you might not be speaking about politics directly, certain things that we say may suggest how our opinions towards one direction or another. And we want to be very mindful of that, because obviously you're dealing with people who are coming from multiple political persuasions, and this is not about a political thing. That is really, I can't emphasize that enough, because it seeps in ways, in subtle ways that we might even realize. So moving along to some of the numbers, I want to look at the trends, some of the trends that we have in this type of thing when we look at what's going on with the numbers of the types of entrepreneurs. So female entrepreneurs, I showed you the slide before. They're starting businesses at 5 times faster the rate than the national average. 5 times faster. And among that group of female entrepreneurs, you have diverse women of color is the fastest growing segment within the group of females. And the statistics show that women comprise 45% of SBDC clients. So you can expect that number to grow, definitely, actually exponentially at this point. However, 98% of women-owned firms generate less than $1 million in annual revenue. There are many reasons for that. We're going to go into some of the discussions on that as well. And only 4% of the nation's business revenue are from women-owned businesses. Well, that stands to reason when you look at the number of less than $1 million. So if you're going at the fastest rate, but you don't have the highest sales, what is the disconnect? There's a serious gap there, and it's not for lack of trying. So how do we fill the gap of bridging the gap, really, to increase the numbers? While the numbers grow for entrance to entrepreneurship, we also want to see the sales grow. And that's kind of where you guys come in. You all come in, we all come in at that point, because that's our job to assist that happening. So trends lead to opportunities. So let's look at a few more trends, and especially now. So we're working from home, remote work. Here I am in my home office, the digital economy. And there was a time when remote work was the purview of a select few. Now it's commonplace for a lot of people in the world, not everyone, but certainly significant numbers have increased in that regard. We're starting businesses younger, and we're starting businesses older. There is not going to be, well, you have to be a certain age to start a business. And when I wrote my book, The Little Girl's Guide to Entrepreneurship, that was my tenet, that you're not too little, you're not too young to start. Because I was asked, my niece asked me, am I too young? Am I too little to start a business? And that got me thinking that there are people out there thinking, I'm too this, I'm too that. So I'm here to tell you the good news is that it's broadening. It's broadening, younger and older alike. The variety of skill sets that people bring to the table continue to expand. They come from all walks of life. They could be a doctor that's starting a business. It could be someone who's a janitor in a company starting their own business and things like that. So we go the full range. People are bringing their skills because they identify some entrepreneurial activity. And then, of course, we know that people are working longer. So retiring at 65 or 65 and a half is becoming maybe less common. So people are working longer in their lives. And they come expecting to fulfill their dreams. We all have a dream we want to fulfill, but some people don't know where to start. So when they show up in your office, they're hoping that's the beginning of their dream being launched. So they're coming with the mindset that you are, I don't know, fairy godmother, fairy godfather, but someone who can help them make their dreams come true. So now we're going to go more into the trends and opportunity here and see what some of this means. So a lot of people starting entrepreneurship, embarking on the journey, they're highly educated, driven to success. And this is a really important point I want to highlight. Just because someone is not familiar with a specific skill, like they don't know how to start a business, or they don't know anything about financial statements, or they don't know some other thing that maybe you are the expert in, that doesn't mean that they're not highly skilled in what they do know. Again, coming from a background of expertise. So they're coming from their position of expertise, seeking knowledge that they don't have. That doesn't make them any less smart. It doesn't make them any less of a intelligent person. That is I really want to emphasize that point, because sometimes we can confuse the fact that a person may, because they're a novice in one area, they're not intelligent in another area. That is a big mistake to make. Also, knowing what motivates people, motivated to own their business, to achieve an optimal work-life balance. We need to understand what motivates people and really kind of get behind a little bit of that, because that helps in the advice that we can provide, knowing what's important to them. And entrepreneurs, what do they want? They want a certain lifestyle. They definitely want to make their money because we all need to survive here. They want freedom, flexibility, and ultimately they're looking for guidance in how to achieve these things. So understanding what is important to a person allows us to provide better insights to them. Now, I mentioned before about the growth in entrepreneurship among women. However, the still very low level of sales. So there's this real big gender gap, an entrepreneurial gender gap that exists for revenue and growth. And as I said, we're going to explore some of these reasons. But understanding that that exists, and our goal is to bridge that gap. It must be bridged, and it will be. So our ultimate thing here is to expedite success, overcome obstacles, and overcoming obstacles sometimes can represent the biggest opportunity. So we want to be mindful of what those obstacles are and what it takes to overcome them, and not just say, okay, well, here are the obstacles. We need a plan to overcome the obstacles. The question is, what are the barriers to success? What are the barriers to success? Because my job is to help you overcome the barriers to your success. And if barriers stay in place, then I really haven't done my job completely. I can create an awareness of the barriers and provide a plan that is actionable, not an unrealistic plan of what it actually takes to do it, step by step. So let's look a little more closely at this. So we have external and internal factors for success. So people come to the table with all kinds of thoughts. So going back to the question as to why there's such a gender gap, revenue gap with the genders, here are some of the reasons right here. There is a deep-seated fear of failure, deep-seated insecurities, and limiting beliefs. This is not just among women. This is among men too. Men and women can have this situation. But it tends to be a dominant trait in a lot of women. Clearly not all women. We don't want to just stereotype and categorize everyone as the same. That's where we make a lot of mistakes, but we're looking at trends here. And the trends show this list I'm giving you. So the deep-seated fear of failure, even if they have a brilliant concept, they're a highly skilled person, you would think they have what it takes. But nonetheless, that fear of failure and other insecurities that people have about themselves linger deep. And the limiting beliefs, what are you saying into yourself? What is the person, the entrepreneur, saying inside of their own head? What kind of self-talk are they giving themselves? Are they talking themselves out of something before they even give it a try? And then they come to someone for guidance and they're like, yeah, that won't work. So like, oh yeah, that just confirmed all my thoughts anyway. Or you know what, let's look at what it will take for it to work. Here are some challenges that you face, but here's some things that really could work. So expanding the belief and being encouraged. Many times someone is just coming to you, they want encouragement. They want to be encouraged that they're not crazy, that they're not in this by themselves. There's so many things going on in one's mind. The idea of imposter syndrome, being intimidated by business, being intimidated by management, what it takes to run a business. Or who am I to do this? Well, who are you not to do this? So there's that thing too, that people might think that way as well. And that's quite a hindrance to feel that of yourself, that you feel you're someone else, or who are you to do it? And just again, going back to the narrative that's running in one's mind, but realizing that they don't need to be intimidated by business, they can learn business. And I've had many female entrepreneurs say that to me, that they've been intimidated, they felt intimidated by some of the knowledge, like how am I going to ever be able to handle cash flow statements, or how am I going to handle this or the other thing, for example. And the lack of mentorship and role models. So clearly this is a major role that the SBDC plays. We're here to do just that, to mentor, to guide people. And entrepreneurs obviously need to be aware of the resources that they can take advantage of. But the idea that they're seeking the guidance and looking up to others who have already blazed those trails, who've achieved the success that they too want to achieve, and being able to see that modeled is always a motivating factor. And now on to the next point of why there's such a revenue gap with the genders. Undercapitalization to execute the vision. For many, this is probably considered the #1 reason, possibly not having enough capital. And certainly, if you don't have the resources to fund a business, it makes it very difficult. And so many ideas and wonderful business concepts have fallen by the wayside for lack of funding. And so it's really fundamental that there be less of an impediment to access to capital. We know that when it comes to, for example, venture capital and private equity, it's disproportionately male dominated, and also in terms of those who receive that level of investment funding. So is it that women are not asking enough? That's a question. Maybe we need to be asking for more money more consistently. And many times people are afraid to ask for money because they don't think they're going to get the money. So again, you talk yourself out of something before you even give yourself a chance. So maybe we need to have more of a mindset of what it takes to get capital. It's not always that easy, and it's not easy for men or women, but it becomes harder. And how do we make it easier? And also, one more point on the capital. What are the different sources of capital that one can access in a relative level of, I won't say ease, but by accessibility, what's more likely versus less likely, and the time it takes to pursue certain capital sources. And then definitely the mindset, and that goes back to, again, all the things going in one's mind, but it all kind of compiles into that thought of how are you thinking about yourself, about your business, your own identity, and the risk involved. This is so multi-layered, and I'm just kind of touching the surface today. But people are coming to you with all kinds of things. And so when it gets in the way of actually achieving a particular goal and receiving the funding you need, or the sales levels you want to achieve, it's like, what does it take for me to break these barriers? So here you have all these things that are here, and how do we work through them? And you might say, well, I'm not a psychologist. I didn't go to school for that, or I'm not here to give that type of advice. But do you know that a business consultant or a business coach is kind of like a therapist for entrepreneurs? That's really what you are. We don't call it that, but that's technically what it is. So you are going to deal with how people see themselves and their comfort level with risk. And then the demand on their time, leading busy lives, a personal life, family demands, children, husband, wife, family, parents, all the relationships that people have. And they have to be mindful of those. And at the same time, then they have to carve out time to grow a business. And so I know I personally understand that, and I'm sure you all do too, that we have so many things to juggle, and that can also slow down success to some degree as well. So what is the role that you play? Well, again, going back to understanding the client's motivation and their personal goals. Having that first before launching into a lot of other discussions. Like, they may come to you and say, you know, I want to discuss my marketing. I want to discuss my sales strategy. I want to discuss my overall business strategy. But some of that, before we even get into that, is understanding what's motivating them. Because it's what's motivating them that will allow them to execute on that strategy. If they don't have enough motivation, they won't be able to execute anything. And also, what are the things that are driving them underneath the surface? So we want to take a little time to get acquainted with that. The next thing is to realistically plan to maximize business opportunity. If I come to you with my thoughts, what does it take to maximize that opportunity and the steps necessary to allow that opportunity to be maximized? And really cultivating that relationship. And I know many consultants are really good at doing this already. Many people are, but there's some that are not. And on many levels, I'm speaking to those who may not be aware of this. There's some people I may be preaching to the choir on, and that's wonderful. But there are some that some of these thoughts may be a little foreign or new. So that is the mindset that I'm coming into this conversation with you with, that we're coming from different places as consultants as well as the entrepreneurs. And so we're finding that middle ground where we can meet. Setting key business benchmarks with checklists to follow. So what this does is provides a certain sense of structure. Someone comes with their concepts and their business, and there may be a certain messiness to it. I think with the different people I've consulted with, there's some people that have everything buttoned up. They really know what they're doing. They know what they're about. It's kind of easy breezy to deal with them, and they know what they need to know. There are others who are coming to you seeking for you to tell them, or you to give them some structure, some order, or some sense of system. And so you'll quickly know the distinction between the two, but one of the ways is to always have a sense of what are the benchmarks we're trying to achieve, what allows us to know that we are achieving some level of success and moving forward with the goals that have been stated. So having some type of checklist where people can say, okay, I'm going to take this and I know this is 1, 2, 3. These are tangible things that I can do that will move me along the spectrum, so I don't get stuck anywhere wondering what's next. Establishing management best practices. Sharing that with clients is so fundamental. People are making decisions based off things that you tell them. How to manage their inventory could be an example. How to hiring practices. It could be all types of things, whether to procure space in a new building or buy a building or what have you, enter into a lease agreement. So I think those management best practices ready to share and understanding the impact it will have on what people decide to do. Because many times clients come in, they might hang on your every word. Sometimes they might not pay attention to do what they want to do anyway, but most of the time, I do believe they're hanging on your every word for you to guide them in making these decisions. Then we want to have a sense of the scaling trajectory, the timelines and how to achieve scale. And so when you look at a business concept, sometimes you're not sure how far it may go or not go, but being able to brainstorm a little bit about that, what could the full-blown concept look like? And then maybe working backwards from the ultimate big picture as a way to really dream about the potential and envision it, and then create a timeline to actually achieve it and what that scaling will actually look like, and training the entrepreneur to get used to the idea of scale. And when you have the mindset of that you are going to scale and grow the business, then you're going to make more long-term decisions as opposed to just short-term knee-jerk reactions. It will be more proactive than reactive for the long term. And then realizing that the business may need to evolve. Many businesses right now during the pandemic where we have been experiencing have had to pivot. That's a term we've heard quite frequently. And not only does it take a pandemic to make your business potentially pivot, but the normal cycle of business can also create opportunities for pivot. And I think at every stage of every business, there's going to be a pivot moment. So it's something to always be prepared to do, that you may need to change this concept, and that will be a fundamental aspect of the scaling concept as well. Many businesses have shut down, or many businesses have slowed down tremendously because of what this whole COVID crisis has created. So how do I allow myself to be relevant in this time and still scale? A lot to discuss, for sure, a lot to discuss. So continuing some more with how you can help. a question about how do you make them feel? How do you make your clients feel? Do you ever stop to think about that? When they leave your office or meeting with you or via Skype or Zoom or however you communicate, how do they feel when they get off the call? Do they feel they were heard? Do they feel what they had to say was important? Do they feel that you have their best interest at heart? Do they feel that you're making the best effort to assist them? How do you make them feel? You might even want to ask them, how are you feeling? How does this make you feel? The discussion we just had, how do you feel about it? And people tend to be pretty open, for the most part, to respond to that question. Now we're going to get to a really important concept here. Using the vocabulary of empowerment to overcome challenges. What vocabulary do we use when we talk to people? What word choice have we selected? What is the language that we are using? What is our body language? I didn't put that there, but the vocabulary could be verbal, and it could also be a facial expression vocabulary of how you look at someone. Do you take a stance of skepticism or doubt, or what is the vocabulary, the stance that we're taking? And of empowerment, so are we using words that suggest that we believe that there's potential here? Now, someone may come to you with an idea that's less than stellar, may not have much potential, but how we address that person and that idea can make all the difference. Maybe that idea is not the best, but they have another one that with a little brainstorming, they can get to a better idea or a better way forward. And realizing that people are coming to you to feel empowered. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can grow my business. And one negative word can make them think, well, maybe not. One positive word can say, yeah, well, maybe I can go forward one more day. Avoiding the use of gratuitous qualifiers and insensitivity. This might be a vague term that I'm going to make very clear right now. Oh, he's smart for so-and-so, some nationality inserted there. Oh, she's nice for a whatever, insert whatever concept you want there. Those are things sometimes we say. You're like, no one's going to say that. Yes, people do say that. And we'll say it directly to someone's face. So those gratuitous comments that are really not necessary, again, going back to the political allusion I made earlier, people do that a lot too with political commentary. They don't even realize it, and they will say something that suggests their inclination to one party or candidate versus another. And that can create a certain degree of insensitivity, especially if the other person is diametrically opposed to the candidate that you just mentioned or the allusion you just made. Being more sensitive to how people perceive what you say. Now, this does not suggest that you are to walk on eggshells and to become paranoid and schizophrenic regarding how you talk to people. But that's the last thing we want to do. We want to have an air of being natural, not some kind of hyped up thing. And I think that many times people are like, they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. You don't have to be afraid of anything at all. If you're coming from a place of honesty and respect, that's all you need to do. And openness, that's it. You don't have to worry about anything else. All right, now be creative in formulating your solutions. What does that mean? I'm going to check in with my clients. I'm going to do a little audit maybe just to see how things are moving along. Are they following those benchmarks, the checklist we just talked about? And if they seem to be at some kind of impasse, what creative method could I come up with to assist them to get to a solution? How do I get them unstuck from wherever they are? So having that solution-oriented mindset. It's like we don't want to ever say to someone, well, there's nothing I can do for you. I really can't help you. Now, you might not be able to do everything they want. So there's a difference between doing what someone wants and being able to help them. It's not necessarily the same thing. They may come in for help with getting a loan and they don't qualify for that loan. Does that mean you cannot help them? You might help them in the steps that they may need to take in order to be more eligible for that. You may be able to help them to apply for something else. You may be able to help them to identify another resource. So yes, you can always help someone. At least that's my philosophy, and I think it's very much true. We want to inspire confidence, provide the timely guidance, obviously, positively reinforce the achieving the goals, that positive mindset of there's always a way forward. There is, even though it may seem bleak or it may look hard. And I didn't say it was easy. I have yet to use the word easy. There is a way forward, but it might take longer. It may take a certain degree of patience, all of those factors, but nonetheless, you can still move forward one way or another. Whether it means changing your business strategy altogether, maybe it means starting a different business, whatever it actually means, just knowing that there is another option is what we want to keep present in people's minds. So I wanted to do a little bit of a role play kind of thing. And if we were here in person with each other live, then we would do this with you as the audience. So I'm going to have to kind of do it for myself. All right, so this is all about gaining perspective and understanding how the other person perceives you and how you may perceive the other person. So a client walks into the room, what do you do? What do you do? And I put here A and B as a potential facilitating this discussion here. So do you find a way to get rid of the person out of that room as fast as you can? Because you want to get on to the next thing that you're doing. So it's about time, and you just, as soon as they can go, the better. The faster they leave, the better. Or B, do you show some genuine concern for an optimal outcome, regardless of the time that it may need to take? And clearly, if you are under a time crunch, you can always say, well, right today, my time is limited. However, we'll set an appointment for another time. We'll continue this conversation. We'll continue the discussion. And when people leave that room, before I asked you, you're asking people, how do they feel? So when they leave the room, how do they feel? If they were to be given an exit interview at the time they finished talking to you, what would they say? Would they answer, well, I felt like I was being rushed out of the room? Or I felt like, yeah, they really did care about what I was saying, and they really did try to make an effort to give me an optimal outcome. We certainly want them to say the latter. And people many times, they just want to be heard. Whether their idea is good or not may not even be the point. They want to be heard. They want to know that someone is willing to listen to them. And realizing this, that for entrepreneurs and business owners, many times at home, no one wants to listen to them. They don't want to hear about what they're going through in their business. Why? Because they don't understand what they're doing. They don't fully appreciate what it takes. So being able to have a sounding board, an impartial, neutral sounding board of someone who really is willing to take the time to listen and understand can make all the difference. They just want someone to hear them. So a certain venting. So you play many roles, not only to provide the guidance, but just to be willing to listen. But the idea is, when all is said and done, that I leave speaking with you knowing that there was genuine concern for an optimal outcome and how to get me there. And that is the ultimate role that the SBDC consultant plays, or any business professional in any capacity. That is what you want your client to leave the conversation with. There have been stories, and I can tell you, I've had experiences when I first started my business, and I engage with different types of people in different organizations, and I may not have felt that there was that genuine interest, that there was more of a desire to dissuade or discourage. And had I stayed with that impression, I may not have gone forward. And it's very easy. People are very easy to be discouraged, more than you might even realize, and also easy to encourage as well. the human brain, it's so malleable. It's so malleable. So you want to always ask yourself this question. And if in doubt, ask the question. A client walks into the room, what do you do? And how do they feel once they leave? And as I said, ask the client the question too. Don't be afraid to get their response in real time, because that will give you insight as to what to do next. I'm going to give you a little summary overview here of what we've been talking about today. So number one, we looked at the evolving face of entrepreneurship, realizing that it's changing greatly. I mentioned millennial to boomer. People are starting businesses younger and older. And what does that mean? Can you comfortably speak with the millennial as you would with boomer and everyone in between? Are you able to not feel uncomfortable in any of those kinds of dialogues just because you're open to the fact that any and everybody can come and sit in front of you? Entrepreneurial ideas are not bound by gender, ethnicity, or culture. They flow across all of those surface divisions, if you will, or distinctions. I won't call them divisions, I'll call them distinctions. Trends and opportunity, growth and challenges. We observed how the gap exists between the growth of the very fast growth of women-owned businesses, and specifically women of color, and within that group, and then the fact that many of those businesses are still under $1 million in sales. And then we looked at some of the barriers to that success. And so another point I wanted to mention is sometimes people don't go and really even seek the help they need. There is a certain pride. That wasn't on my list, but I'm going to add it right now. There's a certain pride that they might not even be coming out to get the help. And that can further create another barrier. So the external and internal factors that prevent sales from growing or businesses from scaling, and really addressing those factors head on will make a difference in having businesses grow and narrowing that gap. And realizing that, showing that genuine interest and care, anybody from any culture can feel that and recognize it and appreciate that. And once we do that, we need to worry about any other distinction or any other face that may appear before you, because all you care about is not the face, but the genuine concern for the person, the individual, to assist them with their business. Then it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't really matter what their gender is. Now, how can you help? Empowerment tools, the important role that you play, understanding how that has an impact, a direct impact on people's decisions. And by encouraging and by recognizing and acknowledging, those are the tools that empower people to move forward and to make those bold moves in their business. And so, and finally, as I wrap this up, always ask yourself the following: what is my intention? What is my intention when I work with someone? Again, is it to show that genuine concern for an optimal outcome? Is it to expedite their exit from the room? Is it to log hours so I can just say, you know, I did my time for today? Is it to narrow that gap so that more businesses can scale and grow? What is my intention? And what is the intention of my client when they come to me? And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about their motivation. What are they motivated to do? What do they intend to do? What do they think their business will allow them to do? And getting clarity, total clarity on this right here sets the tone for everything else to follow. It makes it easier to go from one step and one stage to the next. What is my intention as I deal with everyone? And be able to verbalize and say directly what that intention is. And the only answer is service. I'm here to serve, the servant leader. And you're a servant leader because people are following what you say. So if they're following you, that makes you a leader. But you're leading with the goal of service, to provide that which they need so that they can get closer to that goal that they set. And how I go about doing it. Am I sarcastic in my tone? Am I, again, do I sit back with a certain cross-arm skepticism and let the person feel as if they're not validated? And again, making the very clear distinction between the person and the business. They're two distinct entities. I know for myself, I would think of myself, my business and me are one. We're the same identity. We're one. We're intertwined. And that is not the way to think about your business. You are you as an individual, and your business is its own separate individual, separate entity. And so when someone comes to you, many times we look at the clients as the business. That's it. They're not even a person anymore. They're a business. And we even deal with large corporations as well. We'll just say big old names, IBM, Apple. We'll just throw it out as if they're not people behind those names, which of course there are. But even for a small business owner comes to you, they are more than their business. They're way more than their business. So, that business, they just, they're in this category or they're in that category. But it's still a person separate from the business. That's what service is about, serving the individual that serves the needs of the business. And of course, you always want to have service with a smile. Yes, of course. Because that smile, sometimes people are sitting there looking for a smile. They're just looking for you to smile, and that gives them a certain validation. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and they never really smile, and you're struggling to see that warmth come through, and it doesn't? You always feel like there could be more. So service with a smile, and I would say a genuine smile, clearly, not a fake smile. People want real smiles, they want real warmth. And even though we're through these devices, you may be watching me on a screen and this and that, we're separated by the screen, a smile still travels, whether it's through the screen or in person, and it goes a long, long way. So keep smiling on your Zoom calls. It is appreciated, and people definitely always love to see a smile. And so I'm going to be happy to take any questions that you have for me, and I know there'll be probably an opportunity to share those, to ask questions at some point. And whenever you're watching this, whether live or later or what have you, but you have my contact information here, and I welcome your questions, I welcome your feedback. So with me, Emily McHugh, and I have my email here, which I'll share with you. It's emily.mchugh, MCHUGH, @floridasbdc.org. I also have my personal email, emily@kasori.com. My phone number, 772-460-8978, so you can reach out. And follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Emily the Entrepreneur, or join my Facebook group, Supercharge with Emily, where I help entrepreneurs find ways to supercharge their business and to grow and overcome some of these challenges and obstacles. So thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you for your time and your interest in this topic, and go forth and continue to motivate and inspire, and as we bridge the gap to have more businesses grow, succeed, scale, and thrive.